Red Script Studio presents The Trauma That Binds series, Part 2, A Life in Pieces, a segment of Living Vicariously. Caution: The Trauma That Binds series contains mature subject matter and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, Podcast Nation, and welcome back to Living Vicariously. Today we have The Trauma That Binds series, Part 2, A Life in Pieces. So we did have a bit of a schedule change, so right now we have Aleesha, who is also the owner of Creative Mayhem that happens to make our t-shirts for the studio. So just give us a moment and we'll get her on the phone and she'll give us her experiences about domestic violence and how the loss of her mother unfortunately impacted leaving that toxic environment.
Hello.
Hi, Aleesha.
Yes.
Hi, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. I appreciate you coming on the show today to share your experiences. So how about we just get to it and you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us why you're here.
So my name is Aleesha. I am going to be 34 this year. I've got 3 beautiful kids, aging from 5 up to 13 this year. And I am here to talk about my experiences with abuse and the loss of my mom that have helped mold me into who I am and still becoming.
That's great. I'm sorry that you did go through that situation, and on top of it, losing your mother as well. Yeah, so it's just great to have you on here to share that experiences. Now, what kind of hope do you accomplish with sharing these experiences there?
I feel like with what I went through, I want to make something positive out of it, and having a voice and helping other people in similar or the same situations feel like they can also have a voice. I feel like that's the positivity that I need out of this whole experience.
And I would think that everybody else going through similar situations would appreciate the same positivity. Now, well, right? Yeah, exactly. Now, if you don't mind, did you just want to start with kind of the first signs of what you noticed to be abuse and kind of how it progressed and how your mother played a factor in this?
Yeah, so when I had been about a year out of a marriage and I met my ex, and now I recognize it as love bombing, a whole lot of love bombing. But when it came to abuse, it was little signs like controlling, and like the dislike for the opposite sex, when it came to me at all, whether it was just someone stopping to talk to me or someone that I had known in some way. If they were male, then there was an issue. And going through my phone was a big one too, that I don't think a lot of people recognize is a huge red flag, because it's immediate break of trust. And so my mom always knew things about people I was with before I knew. She recognized signs immediately. And so she always said that she would give someone the benefit of the doubt until they gave her a reason not to. So she noticed that like I wasn't spending as much time doing things that I would like to do, and kind of my life revolved around him and my kids, of course. My kids at that time, my older 2 would have been about 3 and 5, I think, and so, or 3 and 6, and so she noticed also, as things progressed, what my son would tell her, and how, there were things that just didn't seem right. But so she definitely tried to get me to see the things that were going on through the whole thing, and then trying to give me the support that I needed to finally leave, because she knew exactly how I was feeling, because she left my father when I was 1.5 she left from California, where she had gone when she was 18, back to Ontario, where she was from, in the middle of the night by herself to escape an abusive relationship. So And she felt really strongly about not seeing me or my kids in that situation. But I would say especially in the beginning, all the love bombing that you get, and love bombing, if people don't know, is basically when it makes you feel like the most important person on the planet, and it's like gifts and praise and anything that really boosts your confidence. But it was pretty plain to see that it was abusive. I would say come probably about 6 months or so into the relationship, and then even that early on, you kind of end up feeling stuck, especially if you've pushed away some of your supports, which ultimately definitely happens in abusive situations.
Unfortunately for you, it did become a bigger situation. When did you realize those first signs, and how did your mom play a factor in this? Because I know you told me she was sick during this time, unfortunately.
So when I realized that it was really an abusive situation, I was about the first sign, I think I was about 4 months pregnant. So about 6 months, no, yeah. So about I was, yeah, 6 2 months to a year into the relationship. We had gone, it was Halloween and we had gone trick or treating, and I knew that he had a bit of a drinking problem, but I didn't know to what extent it was. And so we went trick or treating, and something triggered him, and he started drinking. And so he ended up being drunk the whole night. And then afterwards, somehow we got to arguing, and I was walking through the house, and he just was following me and like kind of at me with his words, and then just stuck his foot out and almost tripped me. And I knew that 100% was not okay. And so I had gone to work the next day, and I talked to my boss, who was also one of my best friends. And I said, this is what happened. And she looked at me and she's like, that's not going to stop there. Like, that's just the beginning. She herself had been in unfortunate relationships, but so she looked at me and said that flat out. And at this time, I mean, I was pregnant. I was scared because I mean, I'm pregnant, so I'm in this relationship now, no matter what. And I hid all of it from my mom. I didn't want her to know how bad it was. I don't know why. Like she picked up instantly on his controlling and stuff like that, but she never really knew the physical part of it. And I really wish I had told her, because when you go through something like a domestic abuse relationship and you encounter physical abuse, unfortunately, if you don't report it to the police and you don't have that paper trail behind you, it feels like legally and anything like that, it feels like, well, it's as if it didn't happen, basically, because then you just kind of have the he said, she said. So I wish that I had been honest with her and told her what was going on, or, made call when I needed to, because after that, the drinking got more frequent. He was drinking more often, and it was getting more and more volatile when he would drink. My mom, I think she had been told that she had polyps in her colon, but she didn't, like, it hadn't spread or anything. So it was very early, but she had been having health problems and like really bad anemia for a couple years, but she was still okay. I got evicted when I was 4 months pregnant. No, not 4 months pregnant. I was 10 weeks when I found out. So I was probably a couple months pregnant, or 3 months pregnant, when I was evicted, because my landlord needed to move into the house. So we were evicted, and ended up bouncing between my mom's house, and she had a 2 bedroom, and she had a roommate at that point, and my ex's house. And so that really amped up the abuse, I find, because like it was a tough situation, and he had a really small place too. So myself and 2 kids and him, and I was pregnant, and it was a lot. That made things trickier, because it was a lot harder to just be like, okay, go to your house and take a minute whenever abuse would happen, because I didn't have a house at that point. And then when I did, I did find a house just before Christmas that year. That was when my mom was getting a little sicker, May of that year. So I had my daughter in 2019. So May of that year, I think it was on my birthday when I found out that her cancer had spread. And at that point, like, she was still doing well. She was still doing really well. She was going to start chemo at that point, and she did chemo almost right till the end. But I think that's at the time period where I have a lot of guilt because I feel like I chose him over her, and I let the control affect the time that I got with my mom. And she didn't want to be around him at this point because she recognized that, you know, I was doing most of the work of taking care of the newborn at this point because you know, he's got his emotional troubles and trials, and that's fine, you know, everyone has those. But that house for a long time period felt like a prison. Like, it was a prison that we were stuck in, and it was awful. That did get better, unfortunately, when my mom got really sick, and at this point she's pulling people into her circle because she was kind of a hermit. And she was pulling people into her circle to make sure that I had people when she was gone. And so I didn't realize how worried she was. I mean, everything was so emotional when she was sick, and she would come over, and she just didn't want to have him around because he was really cruel when she was sick. And just the things that he said to her on a couple occasions, he was drinking, she was there, he knew she didn't like him. And it was very, I don't know, there was a lot of push and pull with him and her. When to backtrack a little bit, sorry, when my youngest daughter was born, her dad was very open and public about when I was in labor and when I was having the baby. And so I think my mom recognized that that's not really something that I would do. And so she said something like, "Do you know that this is being posted on social media?" And he, of course, read my messages and got really upset. And it caused such a division that my mom wasn't there when I gave birth to my youngest daughter because she just wasn't putting up with his crap at that moment. She didn't want to ruin that moment for me. So I think it was out of love, but it hurt a lot. And more so when she got sick, because I realized, you know, these are decisions that I made where I basically chose him over her, and that's an immense amount of guilt that I'm learning to let go of. Um, but when she got really sick, so 3 months before she passed, she came to live with me because she was too antsy and mobile to go into hospice. Because if you go into hospice, you have to be bed bound, basically. And she liked to move around. She made my kids lunches the day she died. She made crepes a couple days before. Like, she was just very active. She did not just want to sit there. And so she had come to live with us 3 months before she passed, and I wanted to take care of her. We moved in a hospital bed and a commode and all that lovely hospital stuff, and set her up in my dining room, and spent, you know, the last 3 months of what we had there with her, and spending every single moment that I possibly could. And I wish I had done it earlier because, I mean, when someone's dealing with cancer and there comes a point when they're not totally them anymore. And so I feel like I kind of missed some of the good times, but we made the most of the time that we had when she was living with us. And at that point, it was cut and dry. He was not to be at the house because that is not what she wanted to do with her last time on earth. She wanted to spend it with me and the kids, and she didn't deserve to deal with that drama, so I just didn't have him there at all. I was still bringing my youngest to see him, but he was never at the house. And that, I mean, I still talk to him all the time, but that, I think, helped. Because, I mean, if I can take care of my sick mother and 3 children all on my own, it gave me strength and showed me a little more how strong I am and what I can do.
That's perfect. I'm glad you were able to gather that strength to be able to take care of your mom and your kids at the same time, and tell your ex that he needs to stay out because you're taking care of your mom. And I know like you said, 3 months she was there, and then she passed. Now, dealing with her passing, did your ex try and make it worse? Like, was the abuse on top of the grieving as well? And how did you cope with that, if that was the case, if it was kind of a simultaneous thing?
Yeah, it was definitely simultaneous. So before she passed, he kind of started putting in my head that, well, when she is gone, I'm going to be all you have. And so, because like I'm an only child, and I do have a couple close family, but they are in different cities, so that makes it a little harder. But so yeah, so it was put in my head that he would be all I have left when she passed. And when she did pass, I immediately went right back to him, and I let him back in basically because I was so broken and so lost. And I didn't know what to do because my mother was my rock, and she was the same for the kids. And it was just always me and her. And so losing that was just devastating. It was just earth shattering. So then when he had come back into the house, I think he kind of felt that I was like pulling away. And so there was definitely still physical abuse going on. And then it transitioned to not only being when there was drinking going on, but also when there wasn't drinking out of like pure anger. So, I mean, it was all very subtle too, though. So, like, say a bruise on my foot from having a metal coffee mug thrown at my foot. So nothing that was like inherently obvious. There was one very unfortunate physical incident when my mom was alive, but mostly that was all alcohol induced. So then after she had passed, it was a lot of pull and pull, push and pull over. I did have a little bit of space because he had been used to not being there all the time because of my mom. And so I had a little bit more space with him, which was nice. And I think that helped me start the process of really pulling away. And it was a long process, and losing my mom at the same time made it even worse. But I did have one really great support. And she's the one that told me that apparently before my mom passed, she told her that my mom was really afraid of what would happen to me if she wasn't around to call the police. And that was a big wake up call because, like, I don't know if I had been not ignoring the physical abuse, but like kind of saying, well, it's much worse for some other people. Like, it's not extreme. So, it, I just kind of put up with it. But when I heard that, that was a big, huge reality check to me of like, okay, so it's not in my head. Like, this is a thing, and it needs to stop. And so I started putting in supports for myself and being honest with like my psychiatrist. That was a huge step. And just basically putting little blocks in for myself because I knew that I always went back. And that was really frustrating for me. And it definitely centered around the fact that I didn't have my mom there anymore. But as much as her passing broke me, it also gave me the strength to ultimately leave.
Yeah, well, and a mother is good for that, right? As if, like, especially with my own mom, she'll tell me some things, I won't listen, and then next thing you know, it'll happen, and sure as enough, she was right. And unfortunately, this is a situation that she was right about, but it's just good that with her memory and the fact that she did set up that support for you for after she was gone, you were able to get out and use that one person to get that message from your mom and get that clarity and get that help you needed. And when we were talking, you said it was you started therapy, right? That was the first step.
Yeah, I so my mother had used MAID. So for those who don't know what that is, it's medical assistance in death. And so when someone is terminal, they have, as long as they're of a sound mind to make the decision, they do have the option to use MAID. And in my mom's situation, her situation was basically, if you just let it progress naturally, it could have ended up being painful, and no one wanted that for her. She didn't want that for herself. And being able to choose MAID gave her such a profound feeling of control, which was absolutely beautiful, because at that point, I mean, she didn't feel like she had control over anything in her life. So she had that control. She used MAID right at the absolute last minute she could. And so it was very peaceful, and I'm proud that she got to make her choice. But I did end up with a traumatic, I don't know, a memory, but like, it would replay in my head, and like, it was a feeling that went with the whole experience. And so I hit a point where after she passed, I would relive that exact moment every time I closed my eyes if my brain wasn't busy. And so I reached out, and I did, I it's not hypnosis, meditation. It was some sort of meditation therapy, and it helped get rid of that one reoccurring feeling in memory that I would get every time my brain wasn't busy. And so that was really, really helpful. But I definitely wasn't consistent with the grief therapy at first.
Was it just because like you kind of thought it was hokum, it wasn't going to work, or
Well, it did work for that memory, and it wasn't that it was hard at first, because I mean, my little one was home, so she was home with me, and that was a barrier. So I just kind of took a break from therapy. I had tried a grief group online, because this was pandemic time. She died in 2021, so it was like almost peak pandemic. So I did an online grief group, and it was helpful, but it was one, I think, a 6-week session, and then they lost funding. And that was a local group. So, and I found nothing else. Like, there were no supports. Living in a small city on top of COVID just made it almost impossible for me to even get my son the help that I wanted to get him, because he was just like weeks under 10 before my mom died, but she had been like his other parent for, the whole time he was alive. So I really wanted to get him that help as well. And with COVID and our what's available to us here in Stratford, it was near impossible.
yeah, and you're right. It is a lot harder. Well, it was a lot harder back then to get the help that was needed, and it is still kind of hard. And I think that's one of the main things that we need to advocate for is more funding for these programs because, like you said, it was helping, but then it lost funding, and then you couldn't continue on. And that's one of the big things with people in our situations is the fact that we can't afford this private therapy that they're trying to push. And it's just like, it's great that they have the coverage and whatnot, but at the same time, if you don't qualify, it doesn't matter. And if you do qualify, it's only for a specific amount of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, even with like my therapist now, you only have 6 sessions through like the family health team. So if you need beyond that, I believe you're paying out of pocket.
Paying out of pocket can be upwards of $120 an hour for just one session, right? Or
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing's getting accomplished in one session.
So, what advice would you give to others who are navigating the similar situations as yourself, where they've lost someone while dealing with abuse?
I would say make sure you surround yourself with whoever you have. Don't distance yourself, because you're just going to play more into whatever your abuser is telling you. And it's so important to recognize that any negativities that are said about supports for you are likely that abuser trying to keep you from going to those supports. So I was always made to be like super afraid of the idea of CAS, like terrified. That, you know, CAS just takes your kids and this and that. And so I realize now that I really should have reached out to them, but I didn't, because that fear was so implanted in me. And so realizing now, anything negative, like you just have to discount anything negative that this person is telling you about supports for you. Same with friends, like, well, they're not going to believe you, or you know, that's not what happened, or you know, if you do this, then this is going to happen. It's bullshit. It really is, and it's just to keep you in that spot, and that's what the fear does.
Well, and just hearing the word CAS puts fear into people alone. Like, even
Yep.
growing up, it's just like, oh, I'll call CAS and take you away. That was kind of the threat, right?
Yep.
And then as they grew older, oh, you can't do this. I'm going to call the cops and they'll call CAS and take me away. And we'll just be like,
Yep.
do it. They'll bring you back in 15 minutes type thing.
Exactly.
At least that's how it was for me growing up. But all jokes aside, CAS would be an organization or a resource that you would recommend for people?
Um, so I wouldn't say that. I would just say don't be afraid of the supports that you have. I would honestly highly suggest the Optimism Place as the go-to place to start when you're trying to escape or heal from escaping abuse. They've got access to people who can help you with legal stuff if you're needing that, or they also have access to support groups for, you know, women who have been through abuse and building yourself back up. Definitely start with the Optimism Place. They're very discreet as well, and just they're great.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about the Optimism Place. Our last guest, Emily, she had mentioned them and used them as well, I believe, or had just mentioned them. But supposedly they're a really good place to go to, and I'm glad you can confirm that. So, again, with the Optimism Place, that's one good resource. What other coping mechanisms or resources, self care type situations have you found help with your journey through recovery?
I would say it was really important for me to, because I am the kind of person that I put everything and everyone in front of myself. And so one of the things that I've had to learn is how important self care is. And I know most people have heard this before, but it really is true. Even I found that, like, when I wasn't doing things like art that really helped me. I found even taking like 2 minutes out of the day to paint my nails, that was like, for some reason, that was like my first step into self care. And then I found again, because I had been an artist previously, I found art again, and it's honestly, it keeps me sane, and it's really just how I've been healing inside myself. And so I would really suggest, like, if just find something that is for you, just for you, and just run with it. If it's art, awesome. If it's exercise, make that little bit of time for yourself, because you definitely deserve it.
Yeah, and you're completely right. That's perfect. If you can find something you truly enjoy, like a hobby or something to focus on, a little bit of self care can go a long way. I know with my fiance there, she likes to get her nails done at the salon and get her hair done sometimes for when we have the money for it, but just a little more bougie self care if you let's say, right? Okay, well, what would be the big message, the biggest message that you have for people who might be struggling with the same challenges, and what advice could you offer them?
So if you're coping with losing someone, even without the complication of also trying to get out of an unfortunate situation, you have to let go of the guilt. And that is the hardest part. But I had a therapist tell me, like, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have stopped this when this happened. None of that is doing you any good right now. It's just not. And the guilt of, I should have done this with the person before they passed. The best thing you can do is live in the memories that you have of them. It doesn't matter what you should have done. That can't be done now. And the best thing you can do to honor that person that you've lost is to live in the moment and enjoy the life you have. And honestly, I find what really helps me is that I talk about my mom a lot. I talk about her a lot to the kids. If something funny reminds me of my mom, I'll mention it to my partner. Keeping their memory alive like that helps a lot. And then when it comes to abuse, I would just say don't get discouraged when if you go back into the old habits. Don't be discouraged. It happens to all of us. We get reeled back in, and it's a real process leaving. And to the people who are supporting people that have been through this, don't lose patience. They need the patience that you're still going to be there. They need the message that you're still going to be there for them to help them any way you can, even though, they've gone back before. It doesn't matter. You just have to let them know that you're there for them, because as a person going through this, we feel silly and stupid, and we regret going back. And then if you feel like your supports get smaller and smaller because you've gone back, that's not helping at all. So we just really need people to be patient with us, and it's a process.
No, and you're absolutely right. It is a process. It does take time. And actually, you know what? I want to backtrack to something you said. I don't want to be that last thing you said there. So you mentioned something about living in the memory of the person. And when we were talking, you mentioned that your mom loved the Muppets, right?
Yeah, she did. She grew up with the Muppets. They were a big part of my childhood and my children's.
So how about we end the show with you telling us a story about your mom and the Muppets? Let's end it on a good note. Let's live in her memory for a minute.
Okay, so when my mom was young, so I think she said like maybe grade 2 or younger. And she was born in 69, so this would have been in the 70s. And she remembers singing the song um, Rainbow Connection with her grade school class at an assembly. And that, I think, really sparked her love for the Muppets. And there, when shortly after she had passed, I had gotten into vinyl, and so I decided that what I wanted to put on the box that holds my mom's ashes was a quote from that song, because it's just so fitting, and Kermit the Frog at all reminds me of my mom. And so on her memoriam box, it says, "Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me."
That's beautiful. That's amazing, Aleesha. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for coming on the show. And I hope to have
Thank you
you.
for having me, and thank you for giving me and people like me the voice that we all so very much deserve.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. I'll have you anytime. But I'll let you go there, my dear, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. And that was Aleesha, everybody. Show her your support by commenting. Thank you for coming to this show and having a great experience, great conversation with us, and sharing that wonderful story at the end about her mother. So until next time, this has been the Trauma That Binds series, Part 2, A Life in Pieces, a segment of Living Vicariously. For updates on studio productions, follow us on Facebook. If you have a story you'd like to share, contact us on Facebook or email us at redscriptnarration@gmail.com. We'd love to connect.